Power Roster by Valrada. Optimize your work scheduling by ensuring your resource allocation meets your demand.
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Thank you for joining, and I'll be taking you through the Power Roster for HR solution. And my name is Caroline and I'm a solution consultant here at Valrada. I'll also be answering any questions at the end of the session, but if we do run out of time, we'll get back to all the participants with the Q&A and a copy of this webinar as well. Thank you. As HR leaders today, you face many challenges, such as improving employee well-being, increasing worker productivity, and achieving measurable DE&I objectives. With large, diverse workforces, it's essential to invest in tools that can help tackle these challenges. At times, we know making decisions can be tough, and relying on prior experience, your intuition, or just a gut feeling may not suffice. To address the challenges today, we find that our HR leaders are working with multiple systems, cross-checking multiple data points, and often working manually from spreadsheets. Unfortunately, these systems have complex integrations or none at all, leading to error-prone and out-of-date data. This process can be time-consuming and labour-intensive, taking away from the more strategic activities that can add value to your business. Our customers share these same concerns with us, and that's why we've developed a solution that can help. Power Roster with HR. So now we're going to look at automatically creating a roster from a roster pattern and the personas or roles that are used in rostering. Here we have a roster that has been automatically created from a roster pattern. We can see the roles or personas associated with this roster and the individual employees and their shifts. This roster is now ready to be shared for review and approval, or can be published immediately to the employees. So how did we get here? First, we created some personas or roles in Power Roster. You can see here that we have a supervisor role, and each role can include skills and characteristics, including time-limited training, qualifications, and certifications. Next, we need to think about our roster patterns. Roster patterns can be created quickly from predefined templates, or you can design new patterns as needed. We're going to use some of our saved templates in the next step, creating the roster. So let's go ahead and create a new roster. And we're going to create a roster here for our field ops team in the north. And we're going to have that starting on Sunday, the 16th of April. So this roster is now ready to be populated with roster patterns and our personas or roles and our employees. So we're going to come over here and we're going to add 3 different positions or roles across 3 different patterns to help create what we're calling this response roster. So our first role, we're going to have a supervisor, and we're going to show this supervisor his shifts 21 days in advance. Now, as you can see, this is configurable, but we want to give them full transparency of their shifts, which you will see later on the mobile application, so that it can help them, understand when they're working, plan their time off, and promote that work-life balance and help to contribute to a better well-being. We only want one supervisor, and we're going to choose one of these roster patterns that we already created, and we've got some templates here as well. And then we looked at roles and personas briefly earlier, and we're going to give this position the supervisor role. Again, it's going to start on the same day as the roster and no end date. At this point, you can add a default resource if you know who you want the roster to go to, or we can add that at a later step. I'm going to go ahead and add Jacob over here as our supervisor, as we'll be using him later in this webinar. So that's our first position created, and we're going to go ahead and create 2 more. We're going to do an incident member of staff, again 21 days in advance, and we're going to put them on the AM shift, and they're going to be an incident staff persona. We will save that one and not apply a resource. And again, I'm going to show you that one more time. This will be incident staff, and we'll have them as a PM position. We're going to choose the different roster template here, and we'll give him a technician persona. And again, I will not populate the default resource. And now you can see that our roster has been created automatically from adding those positions. It has picked up the roster patterns and the roster templates that we had, and it's auto created a response roster. You can see that Jacob has been already allocated because we specifically chose him, but our incident staff still remain unallocated. Maybe at the time we didn't know who would fill those roles. So we can go ahead now and allocate these roles. And it's going to bring up all the resources that have the right skill set or certifications or meet any other rules that we build into our roster. So I'm going to go ahead and add Caroline as one of our incident staff. And again, I'm going to allocate Scott over here as our final member. So that will take a few minutes just to refresh and update in the system. So I'm going to give that a refresh. And you can see that both Caroline and Scott have now been added to those shifts. So once the roster is published over here, employees will get full visibility of their shifts. Again, depending on
Now
how
the
many
roster
days
is
in
ready,
advance you want
let's
them
have
to
a look at
see.
some of the changes we can make
Or this
from this
roster
same
can go
screen.
into an approval process
So
to be
here we
approved
have
first before it is
incident staff
published out
PM,
to the
but we're going to need
employees.
a second position. So we're going to go and update the roster role here to say that we need to have 2 of these positions. We'll go ahead and save that. We'll go back to the calendar view, and in a moment that will update with a second incident staff role. So you can quickly make changes to your allocations from this same screen. We can also make changes to shift times. So let's take a look at this one for Jacob. He's got a day shift. We can go ahead and change that to a day off or a different activity type. And we can change the start and finish times here as well. Let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to hit refresh so we can see those changes. There we go. So Jacob's shift has changed to finishing at 5 o'clock. And we've got the new role here that we can go ahead and allocate to a resource. And again, these resources that are coming up are the ones that have the skills to do that role. So let's go ahead and allocate that to Alan. We can also do things like change the allocation from the screen or delete shifts on the fly too. And all of these can be done from this single screen. They update in real time, giving you and your employees full visibility, control, and most importantly, flexible rosters. And finally, I just want to point out over here on the left, this is the working hours count. So you can see at a quick glance the amount of hours per week or per shift period, again to help monitor the work-life balance for your employees. So as we've just seen, by enabling accurate and transparent rostering, PowerRoster can help organisations provide more flexibility to their employees, allowing your employees to achieve a better work-life balance, which can contribute to improved well-being. Additionally, PowerRoster can help reduce the administrative burden on your HR departments, freeing up time to focus on employee engagement activities as well as well-being initiatives. Power Roster also helps to ensure that shift scheduling is fair and equitable, preventing certain employees from being unfairly favoured or disadvantaged. Now we're going to show you the mobile employee application, including looking at your leave balances and requesting time off. So here we have the Power Roster mobile application for employees. So employees can go ahead and see their rosters and view their holidays. Going into our rosters here, employees can view their next shift, plus view all upcoming shifts. The amount of shifts that they see here is configurable, but in this instance, we're giving them 7 days ahead, and this type of transparency can help allow employees to easily plan their time off, both at work and at home, to help promote that work-life balance. Features such as clocking on and clocking off a shift are also possible. And as we've already clocked on this shift, we're going to clock off. And we can see here all of that time entry data, and this can be integrated back into your HR system to help simplify your payroll processes and reduce that manual administration. So we're going to head back to our holidays. Employees can view their leave balance here and any leave that has already been requested. Again, giving employees full visibility of their leave balances and allowing them to manage their own schedules. So we're going to go ahead and request some time off. And this leave record here will be visible in both Power Roster and HR and can be managed and updated in both systems as well, as you will see later in our HR demo. So we've submitted that request and you can see that it is now in review and that is flowing through to any approvals that are in Power Roster and HR, and multi-stage approvals can be configured to help ensure that fairness for all employees and to reduce the manual tracking of any leave. Now we're looking at the same mobile application, but with a different configuration. This format is focused on managing overtime, could be shift swaps, and improving team communication. So let's talk about communication. Employees can have notifications configured, keeping them up to date with shift changes, and the app natively includes Microsoft Teams messaging. Here, employees can request a shift change, receive updates, or trigger an automated workflow. So let's take an example of an employee calling in sick to see all of these features in action. Here we have a notification that tells the user that sickness has been reported in their roster. And with Microsoft Teams, it means you get notified even if you're not in the rostering system itself. The user can quickly see that they have a gap in the roster that needs to be filled. The user now goes ahead and opens the shift for overtime, which allows them to manage the process all from that same screen. Power Roster can take into account shift fairness and equitability rules into the overtime management when sending out those overtime requests to help avoid employees being unfairly favoured or disadvantaged. And overtime approvals can also be defined, again, to prevent any discrimination. Back in the mobile app, the employee receives a notification that an overtime shift is available, and they check this on their mobile app. They can see associated impacts such as time off in lieu and pay enhancements. These features allow your workforce to easily track their overtime and shift swaps, offering full transparency to help your employees plan their time off to promote better well-being. The employee expresses their interest in the shift and returns to work. Returning to the back office, we can see that the overtime shift has been automatically inserted into the roster by the system. No manual intervention is needed. That shift is no longer available to be chosen by other employees. And finally, all of this can be integrated back to HR and payroll systems to update any pay enhancements and time in lieu automatically.
As you've just seen, the leave management features allow employees to easily request and track their leave entitlements. This transparency helps your employees to plan their time off, promotes work-life balance, and again contributes to better well-being. Power Roster also can allow for a multi-stage approval process of all the schedules, leave, and actual or adjusted time entries, again reducing the need for manual tracking and approvals. Also, the approval process can help prevent discrimination in scheduling and timekeeping by ensuring that all employees are treated fairly and equitably. Now we're going to show you the integration between Power Roster and HR. We'll start in Power Roster and take a look at the employee position record, the skills and certifications that have been populated by Dynamics HR. We'll then add a new skill and certification in Dynamics HR, which is our source of truth, and flip back to Power Roster to see the change updated. We'll also see how leave can be created, updated, and managed in both systems. Okay, so here we are in Power Roster, and we're going to take a look at our employee records. And we're going to take a look at employee Jacob Thompson. And you can see here inside Jacob's employee record, he's got a couple of characteristics. This is a skill of supervisor, and he is lone worker trained. And he also has the position or the category of a team supervisor. So now we'll head over to HR and see what that looks like. So now we're in Microsoft Dynamics HR, and this is the area that has been integrated with Power Roster. So I'm going to navigate to my employees that have been integrated into Power Roster, and you can see this is a list of all of our employee records. I'm going to go and find our Field Ops team and look for Jacob Thompson and open his record. You might remember Jacob from our earlier demonstration when we added him to a roster. So you can see here that Jacob is a team supervisor. He's in the field operations team and he's also in Power Roster. So we just want to double check that the position is correct here of team supervisor, which it is, which is what we saw in Power Roster. And we will also go and check the certificates. So yep, the lone worker certificate, and this was created here being our source of truth. And again, we'll just double check the skills, and yep, the supervisor skill as we saw in Power Roster. So what I want to do now is go ahead and create a new certification for Jacob. So we will create a certificate type of hopefully first aid trained. So yep, that is in there. And we're going to have that starting on the 12th of April, and we'll have that ending on the 12th of April in exactly 1 year's time. It's got a renewal on there, and we're going to hit save. So now that information has been mastered here in HR and will flow through into Power Roster, which we will take a look at shortly. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and update Jacob's skills. So as well as supervisor, we're going to give him a new skill, and we're going to give him an electrical skill. We're going to choose a level of 2, is standard, and that goes from the 12th of April as well. And we can put in here, as you can see below, any examiners, who it was verified by, and years of experience. But we're just going to hit save. And now those records will go through into Power Roster. So let's go take a look. And here we are back in Power Roster. So let's go take a look at Jacob's record. And we can see over here that both the electrical skill and the first aid certification has indeed come through from our HR system into Power Roster. So again, helping you to reduce that manual tracking of skills, updating different spreadsheets and systems, and having all your HR details flowing backwards and forwards in one place. So now we're going to look at managing leave in both Power Roster and HR. You might remember earlier we created a leave request from the mobile application, but now we're going to be a HR user that is creating a leave request in the back office system. Leave requests can be created, managed, or updated in both Power Roster and HR. So updates from both will flow back to either system. For this scenario, we're going to go ahead and create a record in Power Roster for our resource, Jacob. He's going to request our Friday, the 14th of April. Let's make sure he is requesting a full day off here. And he will definitely be unavailable. And his availability type is going to be annual leave. And now, because I am the admin for the system, I'm just going to go ahead and put this first step approval in so that we can send the record over to HR. Okay, so whilst that saves, we'll give it a couple of minutes. You can see that Jacob's record has been updated in Power Roster. And now we will look over here to the right-hand side to our HR system to have a look at that leave update. So I'm already in Jacob's record and in his leave tab. You can see he could request further time off, but we're going to view the time off that he's requested. So first of all, we're going to see the approved time off, but the leave record isn't there because yet it has not been approved. So we'll go to the time off requests. And we can see at the top that leave request for Friday the 14th, ending on Friday the 14th, has indeed come through, but it is still in a status of review. So your approval processes in both Power Roster and HR can be configurable, but we've done the first step approval over here in Power Roster, and the second step approval is over here in HR. And a two-stage approval process helps to make sure all your employees are treated fairly. As you saw, Power Roster provides an easy-to-use interface for your HR departments to help them manage employee data. Information can be sent to and from your HR system, helping to reduce manual communication and those administrative tasks. Approved shift times can also be integrated into Dynamics 365 HR or other HR systems to help simplify your payroll process. And by providing real-time data on worked hours, absenteeism, and other workforce metrics, HR leaders can monitor whether certain employees are being treated unfairly or are experiencing bias. And for our final demonstration, we're going to look at demand forecasting. In Power Roster, demand forecasting can help HR leaders ensure they have the right number of staff with the necessary skills to meet business needs. So let's take a look at the demand forecast for our Field Ops North team. Demand forecasting can work on actual data in the roster here to give you a quick look of what is happening today, tomorrow, or over the rest of the week. So now what we're showing you is the shift count for each hour of a single day. And this is most commonly used with customers that have contact centres who want to see the amount of shift cover per hour. But here with our Field Ops team, they're actually looking to forecast their staffing needs for an incident. So what we want to do is apply a demand forecast model over here. These models can use both the actual data that's in the roster plus demand forecast data. And the demand forecast data can come from different systems and different sources wherever you have got that historical or factual data that you want to include in your demand forecast. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a demand forecast over here. So we're looking at the incident response. Now, this incident response forecast has been built in PowerRoster, but again, as previously said, these can be imported. So I've chosen that roster over here, and you can see the forecast has changed, and I'm just going to change some of my settings over here. So we're going to be looking at this over a week. Our interval will be on a daily view, and we're going to be looking at the shift counts per day. So you can see those changes have been made here. So what we're looking at is the total number of shifts for all roles that are needed each day of the chosen week in order to fulfill this incident. So what we can see is based on current rosters very easily where we are short on staff. So here we are short on 3 staff and we've satisfied 6, but we forecasted in our demand that we would need 9. We can also see where we exceed. So if we go back into here and we're going to drill down on an individual role level, you can see here that actually for our supervisors, we're exceeding the amount that is needed. And once the impacts are known with your demand forecasts, HR users can then easily set their staffing targets within the rosters so that when rosters are created, these forecasts can be automatically met. And because Power Roster is built on the Microsoft Power Platform, dashboards can easily be created or embedded to help HR users make confident, data-driven decisions. Here we have a dashboard created to give our users a quick look view at the resilience in an area and at the roster level. Users can quickly view the fulfillment of roles and shifts to make better decisions faster. As we've just seen, Power Roster allows your HR leaders to input demand profiles from multiple sources and set shift staffing targets, helping to reduce the need for manual intervention. And by providing real-time data on scheduled shifts, Power Roster can help HR leaders identify patterns in your shift scheduling, monitor compliance with your labour laws, and optimise workforce utilisation. Also, HR leaders can identify areas where the workforce lacks diversity and help to take steps to recruit a more diverse workforce. Power Roster integrated with HR can improve employee well-being by providing transparency and flexibility and reducing the administrative burden. It automates HR functions, saves time, reduces errors, and frees up HR resources for higher level tasks. It provides real-time data for workforce planning, drives people analytics, and optimizes workforce planning. It can bridge the gap between the administrative perception of HR to that of a value generator. PowerRoster supports data-driven decision-making, reduces communication gaps, and protects businesses from data loss. And finally, it ensures that your DE&I principles are being followed throughout the entire workforce management process. So that concludes the demonstration part of this webinar. Thanks again for joining and listening, and we'll now open up to any questions. And again, just a reminder, if we run out of time for questions, we will post the Q&A out to all of our participants with a link to the webinar as well. And you'll also see below our website to find out more about Power Roster for HR.